Alright, you guys. So I have everything laid out for us. And this is just step one for making the cinnamon rolls. This process does take some time, but it is well worth the wait. So for this first step, you're going to need 2 cups of whole milk, a half cup of sugar, 2 sticks of butter melted, and that evens out to 8 tablespoons. You will need just over 2 teaspoons of yeast, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, and 2 teaspoons of salt. So first, we need to whisk together our milk, our sugar, and our melted butter. I left the whisk on the other side. So first, we want to make sure that our milk is warm. We don't want it to be too hot, but just warm enough to the touch where it's not cold if you put your finger down in the milk. Now we're going to add our half cup of sugar, and then our 8 tablespoons of melted butter. Sorry, I was reading my instructions. So we're just going to whisk this together. And now we want to add our yeast. So we need just over 2 teaspoons. And I already have my yeast in this tiny cup here. There's one, and we're going to sprinkle it just over the top. Here's our second teaspoon. And then we want to add our 1/4 teaspoon. And now we're going to stir. We want all of the yeast particles to be covered. So this is kind of what your mixture should look like. I know you guys can't see super well. But the yeast is going to be activated with the warm milk, and we're going to let this sit for 10 whole minutes. You may start to see some bubbles rising up to the top of the mixture, but that is totally fine. So I'm going to meet back with you guys in 10 minutes, and we can finish our dough portion of the cinnamon rolls. Alright, so we can see now that the yeast is activated, and now we're going to want to add 4 cups of flour to our yeast mixture. And I'm actually going to add, we have our baking powder and our salt mixture. We had 2 teaspoons of baking powder, 2 teaspoons of salt and 1 teaspoon of baking powder. Now I only have a half cup here, so I'm going to do 8 half cups of flour. So this is 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So remember, you're just going to want to do 4 cups. I just did the half cups. And then we're going to stir. And we're going to stir our mixture until everything is combined. We don't want to overstir. It should not take that long. Your dough is going to be a fairly wet dough, even once everything is incorporated. And you want to get out any big lumps of dry flour, but you can still have some lumps in there, as we will be needing those out after your dough rises. Alright, so for now, this should be good enough. It is still a little lumpy, but that's okay. We're gonna just let the dough rise and kind of do its own thing at this point. We'll stir it just a tiny bit more. But this looks good to me. So here's kind of what it looks like. We can always add a little bit more flour later if this doesn't end up coming together. So I just have a towel here, and I'm going to place my towel over the dough. And we're going to let this rise in a warm location for close to 1 hour. I'm going to check it in an hour and see if it has doubled in size. And yeah, that's all that we're going for. So I'll check back with you guys in 1 full hour. Alright, you guys. So there were some technical difficulties, but I went ahead and the dough doubled in size, so I poured it out of the bowl, and now it's just sitting over here on the counter. We want to add more flour to the dough, as we don't want the dough to be too sticky. It seemed to be a bit stickier than what I wanted when it came out of the bowl, so I hope that this really helps thicken it up. There we go. Because you don't want the dough sticking to your hands or to the surface that you're filming on. Kneading on. And there are some parts on the inside that are a bit stickier, so we're just going to incorporate more flour into those sections. And we're going to knead for about 10 full minutes, which feels like forever when you're actually kneading the dough. Right now, I'm just focusing on making sure we don't still have any super wet, sticky spots. The dough that is sticking to my fingers should slowly come off as we continue to knead more flour into our dough. it's looking like it's doing pretty well. I'm going to pour the remainder of my flour out. Normally, you don't need to add so much flour to the mixture, so I'm wondering if I forgot to add the right amount. I very easily could have miscounted. And while I did incorporate all of the flour that we have here, it looks like I need possibly a little bit more. Yeah, I'm gonna grab some more flour. We have a whole nother bag over here. I'm just going to pour it directly onto the countertop, since you're gonna have to clean your counters anyways. There we go. Now it's really starting to form and not stick quite as much to my hands. I poured out just a tiny bit more flour in case we need more here. But what we're trying to do now is just make the dough nice and smooth. There's no proper way to knead this, but you're just wanting to get all of the ingredients mixed well together. So I'm just slowly incorporating a tiny, tiny bit more flour each pass, just because when I do go into the dough, it is still a bit sticky. it's starting to form up here. Eventually, we want a nice smooth ball that's very elastic. And alright, guys, we are getting there. I think kneading dough is a lot of fun. I'm gonna keep going probably for about 2 more minutes, I'd say. I really do hope these turn out well. I really enjoy cooking, and I feel like I'm fairly good at it. Baking, though, I'm okay. Not the best. Alright, so here's kind of just our ball of dough. And perfect. You want to check just a few spots. You want that elasticity in the dough. So you're supposed to kind of let the dough rest for a little bit of time. And what we want to do next is we want to roll out the dough and put the filling on the inside. So we're going to give the dough some time to rest. Just going to set him off to the side. We're going to make our filling, and then we're going to come back and roll out the dough and start to actually bake these not crescent rolls. My goodness, what am I even making? Cinnamon rolls. We're going to make the cinnamon rolls. Alright, so for the filling, we need 3/4 cup of light brown sugar. My 3/4 measuring cup is actually dirty, so we're using a 1/4 measuring cup. And we'll do 3 of these. Perfect. Now we want tablespoons of cinnamon. A lot just went in there. That should be good. And that is why you don't dump your ingredients over top of your bowl. Then we want a stick and a half of softened butter. And we're just going to mix this together. And it's going to form this really dark, buttery paste when you mix it with that cinnamon and the brown sugar. And you want to make sure to mix this really well. That way it's not like someone gets a bite just filled with cinnamon and then a bite filled with sugar. We want it to be evenly dispersed. This looks pretty good, so I'm going to taste a bite of it. These are going to be great. So we're going to set a couple of things off to the side here. We're going to grab our rolling pin. And we're going to put a little bit more flour on our surface and our pin. This is just so the dough does not stick. And we're going to start to roll it out here. You want to try to get it into a rectangular shape if possible. Let's see here. And we'll probably roll it this way. We can do a little bit more rolling here. So we're going to square up our edges, and I don't have a square edge, so we're just going to use a spatula for that. gonna see if I can add a bit more to the top here. Perfect. We won't have to square off that edge quite as much. Alright, so there we go. That looks pretty good to me right now. What we're going to want to do is layer this whole sheet of dough with the paste that we just made to go for the insides. And I like to just kind of dabble the whole thing on. And then you just want this to be spread evenly around. You don't want it too thick, but just an even spread in there. Right. So that looks really good to me. Now we're going to start making the cinnamon rolls. And I'm debating which way, but I think we're going to roll it up this way. So you want to start off pretty small and go fairly slow, because you want your rolls to be even. And I'm just going to roll it back towards me. And there we have it. Now we need to cut these up. So the fastest, easiest way to cut them up is using dental floss. So I got the non-flavored kind of floss just from the grocery store. You're going to want a fairly long piece. And you're going to wrap it around the roll. And I'm just going to cut off this end section. And basically you just tie it together. And there you go. So that first piece, we're going to work on that one because the end is sticking out a little bit. But you want pieces that are about 1.5 inches thick. Oh, that is the perfect cinnamon roll, you guys. So good. I might do mine a bit thinner since they're fairly thick. see how many we can end up getting out of one roll here. So if you have a large family, you may need to make a double batch of these. The floss really just helps cut through. There we go. If you were to use a knife, it would most likely just squish your cinnamon rolls down, which you do not want. Looks like we might be able to get 2 more good ones out of here, maybe 3. We've got 9 so far. Cut off the bad. You don't want that like lumpy end, so we cut that off. And now we've got 10. We'll cut off the lumpy end on this one too. Oops. There we go. That was a bit messier than I had anticipated. Alright, so now we have 10 cinnamon rolls laid out. And we're going to want to put these in a greased pan. And you're going to want to let them sit in your pan for about 35 minutes. They're going to rise up once again. So I'm going to go ahead and put these in our buttered pans. And then we're going to let them rise for 35 minutes. And I'll check back in with you guys. Alright, you guys. So I went ahead and I made icing, just because that made a little bit of noise while doing that. But I had to beat together some melted butter. It was 2 tablespoons of melted butter, half a stick of cream cheese, and then a little bit of milk and a little bit of vanilla extract. Sugar. So I went ahead and I really beat all that together. And the mixture is still a slight bit lumpy, but that should be okay. And then I went ahead and baked our cinnamon rolls in the oven at 350 for 25 to 35 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and just pour the icing mixture on top of our rolls here. And there we go. Some homemade cinnamon rolls. I hope you guys enjoy